Have what it takes. Tenho o necessário.
I guess I don't have what it takes to be a composer. She has what it takes to become president. He has what it takes to win this competition. She doesn't have a college degree, but I think she has what it takes to do the job. She's pretty talented. I think she might have what it takes to become a Hollywood actress. I know I have what it takes to make my dream come true. He's certainly ambitious, but if you ask me, he doesn't really have what it takes to be the best. Do you have what it takes to join us? I guess I just don't have what it takes to become a professional chef. He didn't think that you have what it takes to get a scholarship playing
Tenho o
soccer.
necessário.
About 90% of you simply don't have what it takes.
Be positive.
Are you positive about that? Are you sure it's okay for me to use your mother's car? Positive. Are you positive about that? Are you sure it's okay for me to use your mother's car? Positive. Are you positive that you saw me switch the iron off? I'm absolutely positive that he's the man I saw. I'm as positive as I can be about it. She's never late. You sure she said 8? Positive. Are you positive that there's been no mistake? We'd met before. I was positive about that. We'll make money from this deal. I'm positive of that. Are you absolutely positive you locked the door?
Você tem certeza absoluta? Ins and outs. Pormenores.
She knows the ins and outs of the law. I know how to use computers, but I don't really understand the ins and outs of how they work. I'm not surprised he made such a stupid mistake. He doesn't know the ins and outs of this business. I don't understand the ins and outs of politics.
Os pormenores.
Jane knows the ins and outs of repairing computers. It takes a newcomer some time to learn the ins and outs of the legislative process. David really knows the ins and outs of how this engine works. Dietary experts can advise on the ins and outs of dieting. She had been at the store for 5 years and knew all the ins and outs. I don't really know all the ins and outs of the matter. I'm still learning all the ins and outs of American politics.
Not out there. Não bate bem da cabeça.
Look at that guy talking to himself on the corner. I guess he's not all there.
Acho que ele não bate bem da cabeça.
Jim's a nice guy, but with some of the foolish things he does, I think he's not all there. Sometimes I think you're not all there. Be nice to her. She's not all there. You know he's not all there. He's not all there, but he's harmless. You can't depend on Paul for much help. He's really not all there. You could tell that she wasn't all there. You could see it in her eyes.
Tava ali a realidade.
During the football season, the coach is not all there. He says he is not all there when filming. Her aunt is very sweet, but not all there.
Bite your tongue.
All I can do is bite my tongue if I want to keep my job.
É morder minha língua.
I don't know, man. I think I have cancer. Bite your tongue.
Vira essa boca pra lá.
I wanted to argue, but I had to bite my tongue. I wanted to tell him exactly what I thought of him, but I had to bite my tongue. She wanted to tell him he looked ridiculous, but she bit her tongue. When he said he was the best on the team, I just bit my tongue. She's so temperamental that even if you disagree with her, it's better to bite your tongue and say nothing. I'm just biting my tongue for now. If she wants to ask my advice, she can. I had to bite my tongue to stop myself telling Neil exactly what I thought of his stupid plan. I had to bite my tongue as my sister gushed about her new boyfriend yet again. Oh, I don't think I'm going to get the job. Bite your tongue. You don't know that for sure.
Vira essa boca pra lá.
Marry him, but you're older than he is. Bite your tongue. He's 2 years older than me. I'm afraid that we've missed the plane already. Bite your tongue. We still have time.
Mark my words. Escreva o que te digo.
Mark my words, nothing good will come of this. He'll be back, mark my words. He never stays away for long.
Escreva o que eu digo.
Mark my words, Penny will be glad she made this decision one day. Mark my words, she won't regret taking me up on my offer. I had no idea about the conversation concerning their agreement, but mark my words, it shall all come to light soon. Mark my words, that relationship won't last. Mark my words, one day your son James will become a great businessman. If you do not improve your behavior, then mark my words, one day everybody will leave you. Mark my word, Jonah, I will get even with you if it's the last thing I do. He'll cause trouble, you mark my words. Look, Stefan's involved, you mark my words. They're going to regret firing me, you mark my words. Don't take her with. You mark my words, she will cause only problems. I was just leaving her office when she told me to mark her words, that I would get fired tomorrow.
Play ball.
My son often plays ball with the boy from next door.
Jogar bola.
Jim and Carl were playing ball in the backyard. Let's go and play ball in the park.
Colaborar.
The family wanted him to be taken care of at home, but the insurance company refused to play ball. So far, the company has refused to play ball, preferring to remain independent. There is a simple, inexpensive solution for those who refuse to play ball with the system. The association has threatened to withdraw its support if the banks refuse to play ball. We need their help, but will they play ball? Because he refused to play ball with these criminals, he was shot and seriously wounded. If you play ball, we'll be able to reduce your sentence from 8 years to just 2. Just play ball and do what they say, and nobody will get hurt. They thought they could use him for their propaganda, but he refused to play ball.
Vamos lá.
It's time to get a move on. Let's play ball. Let's play ball.
Vamos lá.
Okay, folks, let's play ball.
Up front.
She wants half her fee up front.
Adiantado. Ela quer metade da sua taxa. Adiantado. Up front.
Unfortunately, if you want to take the course, you have to pay up front. The more you pay up front, the less you'll have to finance.
Adiantado. Up front.
We need at least half of the money for the production up front. We finally agreed to pay him half the fee up front, and the other half when he'd finished. They warned us up front of the risk. Consumers should know up front what it is going to cost them. You get angry when I withhold things from you, so I'm saying it right up front. Brett told us right up front that he wanted joint custody of Jake.
Logo de início.
She is a very upfront gal. Trust her.
Ela é uma garota muito franca.
They're not mind readers, so you need to be upfront about what you want.
Franco, upfront.
I wish the salesman had been more upfront about it. Now be upfront and tell me what you think of this outfit. If that's what they're doing, they ought to be more upfront about it. She's very upfront about why she wants the job. She'd earn a lot more money.
Set on doing something. Decidida.
She is set on going to the party. We were all dead set on traveling to Spain for the summer until Lizzie broke her leg and we had to cancel it. I wanted to spend the money on a new car, but my husband was set on getting new furniture for the living room. I'm dead set on getting dancing lessons now.
Firmemente decidido a tomar aulas de dança.
She's dead set on leaving her job and emigrating to Canada.
Decidida a deixar.
My cousin, set upon being the best tennis player in the world, trains for 6 hours every day. She's been set on becoming a fighter pilot ever since she was a little girl. He's set on getting a new car. To my surprise, he was dead set on a new career as a solicitor. So you're definitely set on a career in medicine? She's set on a career as a football player. He is set on his plan.
Head over heels. Perdidamente.
Laura fell head over heels in love with Chris.
Perdidamente para o Chris.
He's fallen head over heels in love with his boss. Sam was head over heels in love with his bride. It wasn't just the usual liaison. The two of them fell head over heels in love. There's no doubt about it. Taylor Swift is head over heels in love with her boyfriend Joe Alwyn. Oh, I know he's head over heels in love with Christina. He won't stop gushing about her. We used to be head over heels, but now we just annoy each other most of the time. They are head over heels in love with each other. I soon found myself head over heels in love with this girl. I was very attracted to men and fell head over heels many times. We met in 1998 and fell head over heels in love.
Poker face. Cara de paisagem.
She managed to keep a poker face. In business, a poker face can be very useful. One of the most difficult things to do in an emotionally charged situation is to maintain a poker face. I can never have a poker face. Anybody looking at me can tell exactly what I'm thinking. The high bidder kept a poker face after being declared the winner. She tells the women to practice their poker face so they won't draw attention if they screw up. He can tell a funny story with a poker face. Whenever Betty attended one of her children's performances, she managed to keep a poker face. Wright has a terrific poker face. I could see how he was able to keep things a secret for such a long time. A good poker face is considered a prerequisite for a successful gambling career. I kept looking over to see if she was impressed, but she wore a poker face throughout the performance. Make sure you keep your poker face on for these negotiations. We can't let them know where we stand.
To have a bun in the oven.
You're having a baby shower for Carla today? Wow, I didn't even know she had a bun in the oven.
Estava grávida.
Rumor has it she has a bun in the oven. If she does have a bun in the oven, that hasn't stopped her from smoking as usual. Her parents were surprised to learn that she had a bun in the oven. But is having a bun in the oven at the same time as your sisters a blessing or not? Throwing a baby shower is one of the best ways to announce that you have a bun in the oven. She was happy to announce to her parents that they would soon be grandparents, as she had a bun in the oven. After running numerous tests, the doctor was happy to tell Mary that she wasn't sick, but that she had a bun in the oven. Do I look like I have a bun in the oven? They have been trying to figure out if the star has a bun in the oven. They suspect she might have a bun in the oven.
Take one for the team.
Honeybees actually die when they sting you, but they are so protective of their hive that they will take one for the team without hesitation.
Sacrificam pelo resto.
My friend was desperate to go on a date with this guy, so I took one for the team and agreed to go on a double date with his less attractive friend. Donald Trump will soon be told to take one for the team and leave office, said Scaramucci.
Se sacrificar pelo time. Take one for the team.
Sometimes you have to take one for the team, he said. There wasn't enough room in the car, so Jerry decided to take one for the team and stayed behind while the rest of us went to the concert. Thanks for taking one for the team so we don't have to.
Sacrificar.
Someone had to watch the kids, so she decided to take one for the team and stay home. Just take one for the team for once, will you? He took one for the team and refrained from drinking so that he could drive us back home. He was a great friend, always willing to take one for the team.
Worst case scenario.
In the worst case scenario, we're all dead.
Na pior das hipóteses.
Now let's look at the worst case scenario. The study concludes that, in a worst case scenario, there might be 80,000 cases of the disease. We don't expect it to happen, but we need to plan for the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario here is that we lose the next 3 games and miss the playoffs. Imagining a worst case scenario helps in planning expenditure cuts and in formulating contingency plans if the event actually occurs. The worst case scenario is an aircraft will crash if a bird destroys an engine. Even in a worst case scenario, the United States would have been able to retaliate.
Na pior das hipóteses.
The worst case scenario is that he is not serious about the relationship. The worst case scenario is that blood vessels supplying the kidney are ruptured. Then, the very worst case scenario became a reality. Forced conversation is the worst case scenario, and genuine moments are the most valuable thing on the planet. I went to bed around 1 a.m., but lay awake all night running through the worst case scenarios. I always look for the risks, the worst case scenario.
Bummer.
I locked my keys in the car. Bummer.
Droga.
I've left my wallet at home. What a bummer.
Que droga.
Looks like we're having a test tomorrow. Bummer. I've just lost my job. That's a bummer. It's already time to leave? Bummer. Waiting all day at the airport is a real bummer. While it might seem like a bummer to spend your summer vacation working, it's actually a good way to spend your time. Some Caribbean destinations are better suited to adults, and going there with kids can be a real bummer. That concert was a real bummer.
Uma chatice.
Getting stranded at the bus station was a real bummer. Having to stand in line so long was a real bummer. A lot of my friends are getting married, she said, and that's kind of a bummer. How did you like the movie? A real bummer.
My bad.
My bad, I didn't know.
Foi mal, eu não sabia.
My bad, it won't happen again. You brought the wrong book. Okay, my bad, I'll go get it. Yes, I know that the car isn't supposed to be parked there. My bad.
Foi mal.
Jerry, I asked you to do the dishes an hour ago, and they're still piled in the sink. Oops, my bad, honey. I'll do them right now. Sorry I forgot to call you. My bad. Sorry about the confusion. It's my bad.
A culpa é minha.
You know what? You're right. It's my bad. It's my bad, guys. I'll take care of it. I guess it's my bad for trusting him to keep a secret, right? I thought it was my wife's fault, but it was really my bad.
Be fond of. Gostava muito.
She was very fond of horses. I'm very fond of you, you know, he said. I like to travel, but then again, I'm very fond of my home. Joe's quite fond of her, isn't he? I'm not overly fond of cooking. My brother is fond of pointing out my mistakes.
Adora.
My grandfather was very fond of handing out advice to all my friends. Sheila's very fond of telling other people what to do. He's rather too fond of the sound of his own voice. She's fond of asking silly questions.
Out of sorts. Meio doente.
I've been feeling tired and headachy and generally out of sorts.
Meio doente.
I've been feeling a bit out of sorts lately.
Indisposto.
Louise went back to work, feeling rather out of sorts. Quinn returned home that evening out of sorts.
Indisposto.
She is feeling a bit out of sorts.
Meio mal.
I think something is bugging John because he's been rather out of sorts lately.
Irritadiço.
After living in Florida for so long, these awful Minnesota winters leave me feeling out of sorts. Don't ask him today, he's out of sorts.
Meio rabugento.
He returned to his motel room feeling ill-tempered and out of sorts. The teacher is out of sorts this morning.
Filled to the brim. Cheia até a borda.
I like my coffee cup filled to the brim.
Filled to the brim.
If the glass is filled to the brim, I can't drink without spilling the contents.
Cheia até a borda.
When you refill your tank, make sure it's full to the brim. She passed him the mug, full to the brim with hot black coffee. Her mind was filled to the brim with ideas for her new book.
Cheia até a borda de ideias.
I felt filled to the brim after my grandmother's Thanksgiving meal. I've got so many meetings and deadlines these days that my schedule is filled to the brim. We're filled to the brim with excitement. The toilet was full to the brim with insects. She is filled to the brim with nervous energy now that her performance is just a week away.
Go a long way towards. Vai ajudar muito.
The money raised will go a long way towards providing essential food and medicine.
Vai ajudar muito.
Although not a cure, it goes a long way towards making the patient's life tolerable.
Vai ajudar muito.
If we get that right, we will go a long way towards managing the challenge of change. They gave ideas that go some way towards reducing environmental problems. And Monday's game will go a long way towards determining Wright's future. This machine goes a long way toward meeting our needs.
Esta máquina ajuda muito a satisfazer as nossas necessidades.
This machine goes a long way toward meeting our needs. Your plan went a long way in helping us with our problem. This argument goes a long way toward proving the scientists are wrong. The new law goes a long way towards solving the problem. The money raised will go a long way towards paying for Freddie's medical treatment.
Stay on top of. Manter em
He
controle.
blamed the government's inability to stay on top of the situation.
Manter controle.
Everything is going well. Jen has been staying on top of everything while you were on vacation. I don't know how you stay on top of all the different student issues that are brought to your attention. How Janet manages to stay on top of all 8 of those kids is really beyond me. You've got to stay on top of all your employees if you want your business to run smoothly. You have to stay on top of her if you want her to do it right. I will stay on top of this project. I try to stay on top of things.
Eu tento ficar atento às coisas.
The stock market has been unpredictable, and you really have to stay on top of things.
Ficar atento.
Thanks for staying on top of things.
Obrigado por tomar conta de tudo. Or else.
Sit down and behave or else.
Se não,
He'd better find it quickly or else. You'd better remember to bring the baby bottles this time or else. You'd better clean up this mess or else. You'd better do as we tell you or else you won't succeed. Give me back those letters or else I'll scream.
ou então eu vou gritar.
Eat your vegetables or else you're not getting any dessert. We must be there by 6 or else we'll miss the beginning.
Se não, perderemos o começo.
Always check the oil level or else you risk damaging the engine. You know I really care about you or else I wouldn't be here. I'm sure they're safe or else we'd have heard something.
Or else.
She's either really talkative and you can't shut her up, or else she's silent.
Ou então ela fica muda.
Go away, or else I won't finish my work today.
Vai embora ou então eu não terminarei meu serviço hoje.
He either thinks he can't do it, or else he just isn't interested. You have to leave, or else you will be arrested for trespassing. Either he's asleep, or else he's just ignoring me. I can't get through to Sally. She's out, or else she's decided not to answer the telephone. We must leave now, or else we'll miss our train. You could drive across France, or else fly to Geneva and hire a car.
Hard time.
This is a hard time for parents, too.
Momento difícil.
Hard Times is the 10th novel by Charles Dickens. Those were hard times, but we managed to get by. How much hard time does he have behind him?
Quanto tempo de cadeia ele cumpriu?
How much hard time does he have behind him? When we catch these criminals, they're going to be doing at least 20 years of hard time.
de cadeia.
He had merely been fined before, but now was sentenced to 90 days hard time in the county jail. He could be facing hard time for his crimes. She's having a hard time living within her budget.
Dificuldades.
I had a hard time at first with this novel. The school has had a hard time recruiting substitute teachers. He's been having a hard time with his research paper. I'm glad she's happy at last. She's had such a hard time. Vegetarians still often have a hard time of it when it comes to eating out. I'm having a hard time finishing this book. I had a hard time at the doctor's office. I had a hard time persuading him to accept the offer.
Achei difícil.
Just don't give yourself a hard time if you get distracted.
Só não fique se recriminando se você distrair.
Don't let him give you a hard time. He's often late himself. Her kids always give her a hard time when she takes them shopping. My mother gave me a really hard time about staying out late. Has Luke been giving you a hard time?
Shift gears. Trocar de marcha.
He doesn't even know how to shift gears. The driver shifted gears as the car climbed the hill.
Trocou de marcha.
Do you drive a construction truck with manual gearbox? Then count how many times you shift gears in a working day. The buttons on the shift selector allow you to step in and shift gears manually. Is it true that with your new mechanical arm, you can shift gears in less than a 20th of a second? Press space to shift gears up and Control to shift gears down. The first half is a comedy, but then the movie shifts gears.
Muda de direção. Shift gears.
With that problem out of the way, let's shift gears and discuss our strategy for the third quarter. About halfway into the story, the book shifts gears and begins a narrative from the perspective of the antagonist. She'd been working in accounting for several years, but decided to switch gears and try out sales. In the United States, it's common for people to switch gears mid-career and go back to university to pursue higher education. The team will need to shift gears and play at a higher level than before.
Mudar de ritmo.
I love taking yoga after work. It feels so good to shift gears and relax after a hectic day. The beginning of the book is a bit boring, but the story shifts gears in the third chapter when the main character loses her job and travels to Africa. I've been talking for 40 minutes, so now I'll shift gears and answer some of your questions.
In lieu of. Em vez de.
They gave me a roast beef in lieu of ham.
Em lieu, em vez de presunto.
A plate of hard-boiled eggs sat on the table in lieu of flowers. She likes food so much that when I travel, I consider sending her menus in lieu of postcards.
Em lieu.
They gave him a cash award in lieu of the promised prize package.
Em vez de.
In lieu of flowers, please send donations to the scholarship fund. In some instances, an interview with a nutritionist will be desirable, in addition to or in lieu of laboratory studies. The company is allowing workers to receive cash in lieu of vacation time. They gave some books in lieu of payment for the work I did. In some cases, a telephone interview will be held in lieu of a personal visit.
No lugar de.
He left what little furniture he owned to his landlord in lieu of rent.
No lugar do aluguel.
He was offered a cash bonus or stock options in lieu. He worked on Sunday and took Monday off in lieu. If you didn't have your fortnightly visit, you were allowed to write a letter in lieu or sometimes make a phone call.
The crème de la crème. É o melhor dos melhores.
This car is the creme de la creme of luxury vehicles. Jack is the creme de la creme of photographers. She was the creme de la creme of fashion designers. To experience the creme de la creme in service and craftsmanship, make an appointment with Mr. Robeson. She was hoping to attract the creme de la creme of the art world to her exhibition. This university takes only the creme de la creme of school leavers. Naturally, only the creme de la creme have been invited to the wedding.
A nata.
These 3 students are very bright. They are the creme de la creme of their school.
Eles são a nata da escola deles.
We've had well over 700 entries, and we want to be sure that our winners really are la creme de la creme. This delicious strawberry cake is the cream of the crop.
Cream of the crop. Melhor dos melhores.
We need to draft this player. He's definitely the cream of the crop. The medical school's graduates are considered to be the cream of the crop and can get jobs wherever they want to. They were still the cream of the crop, socially surpassing not only their constituents, but also their colleagues in Congress.
Eye candy.
Most of the images on the website are not more than eye candy.
Atrativos ao olhar.
The computer graphics added lots of eye candy to that movie. Every enterprise needs eye candy, Ben. Animation has stopped being eye candy for kids and become mainstream entertainment. The film is filled to the brim with delightful eye candy, but there is no worthwhile plot or characters to do the visuals justice. Kids would love the high visual impact, while the kid in all of us will enjoy the eye candy too. Forget the acting, just look at the eye candy. I'm going to the beach to check out some eye candy. Her new boyfriend is a nice bit of eye candy, but you can tell there's not much happening upstairs. The dame is just eye candy. Her brain is occupied with hair and nails appointments, and strained to do even that. I hate to speculate before we've collected any evidence, but she could just be eye candy for some rich guy.
Get to know.
The new neighbors were getting to know each other.
Conhecendo.
We just bought a house here last month, and we're still getting to know our neighbors. I think a person should get to know someone and even be in love with them before living together. Come to think of it, he'd seemed rather a decent chap, someone it might be worth getting to know. It'll take a while for you to get to know everyone. Now that I'm retiring, I'll miss this place. I got to know a lot of interesting people over the years.
Eu vim a conhecer. Getting to know.
She had seen a leaflet about the book club and thought that this would provide a good opportunity of getting to know new people. It took me a year to get to know the city properly. I'd really like to see you again and get to know you better. I just got a new job. I expect that I will get to know my new boss much better over the next few weeks. I'd like to get to know you better. Could we have dinner sometime? I'm starting to fit in as my coworkers are getting to know me better.
Jet lag.
Every time I fly to the States, I get really bad jet lag.
Jet lag muito intenso.
When traveling on business, Schedule in some time to allow yourself to get over the effects of jet lag. I had bad jet lag after that last trip overseas. One not nice thing about coming back from Southeast Asia? Jet lag. Flying from west to east is associated with worse jet lag than east to west. According to the American Sleep Association, 93% of travelers will experience jet lag at some point. Here's a good idea: a survey to see if birds are afraid of heights or get jet lag on long flights. You have to deal with jet lag, and the time to recover is short. I get terrible jet lag, so I have these pills I take, and they knock me out. He was still beat from the cold, the jet lag, and the hard work. Insomnia can also occur with jet lag, shift work, and other major schedule changes.
Duly noted.
Your concern is duly noted.
Sua preocupação está devidamente registrada.
Your opinion on this matter has been duly noted. All of the facts were duly noted on the record. Well, your objections are duly noted and summarily overruled. Your dedication is duly noted, Mr. Neelix. I would appreciate it if this comment could be duly noted. They have a nice variety of gluten-free items available, duly noted on their menu.
Devidamente registrado.
The creeping influence of Korea's pop industry has been duly noted by journalists, fans, and artists. I am warning you that this is too dangerous. Duly noted, but we don't have a choice. Judge, I'd like to inform you that my client is not permitted to state his true name and wishes to be known as Mr. X. Duly noted, says the judge as she writes a note.
Tomei nota.
Mrs. Crabapple, in figuring out my final grades, I hope you'll note that all of my textbooks are being returned in excellent condition. In some cases, still in their original wrappings. Duly noted, Bart.
Inspiring.
The canyon was so awe-inspiring that even Dan was speechless.
Imponente.
The city has the most awe-inspiring skyline in the world.
Inspiring.
These awe-inspiring sights, towering mountains, vast deserts, endless skies, will put you back in your place. The National Mall is awe-inspiring and filled with free museums and monuments. Niagara Falls really is an awe-inspiring sight. Her knowledge of computers is quite awe-inspiring.
Impressionante.
It's a museum with an awe-inspiring display of jewelry. This restaurant reportedly has top-notch seafood and an awe-inspiring decor. The higher we climbed, the more awe-inspiring the scenery became. The help you have given me is truly awe-inspiring. Do you have a sudden urge to squeeze our lover when you look out on a sunset, an awe-inspiring vista, or a dreamy landscape? This opening, a 13-minute shot in impressive 3D, is one of the most awe-inspiring film sequences in recent memory.
Make ends meet.
It's not easy to make ends meet with a big family, but somehow we manage.
Não é difícil pagar as contas com família grande.
Many people are struggling to make ends meet because wages are failing to keep pace with rising prices. Mom had to work extra to make ends meet, and she spent more and more time away from home.
Ganhar o seu sustento.
Many students are finding it difficult to make ends meet.
Em se sustentar.
When Mike lost his job, we could barely make ends meet. To make ends meet, she works for a travel company and makes dumplings for a cafeteria. They were finding it hard to make ends meet. Some want to make enough money to make ends meet. Others want money for extras, or just a way to stay busy. Life was hard, he said, but he managed to make ends meet.
Viver com o que ganhava.
Old people on pensions are finding it hard to make ends meet.
Float one's boat.
Motor racing doesn't really float my boat.
Não me interessa muito.
At first, many of our customers don't know exactly which package floats their boat.
Lhes interessa.
Well, I have something that might float your boat.
Bem, eu tenho algo que talvez lhe interesse.
Well, I have something that might float your boat. I think this new job in the lab will really float Isabel's boat. Kevin doesn't exactly float her boat.
Atrai, não atrai.
I can see the band's appeal, but it doesn't float my boat. I invited Lily to join us, but horror films don't float her boat. You can go swimming, hiking, or just lie on the beach. Whatever floats your boat.
O que te deixa feliz?
What do you want for dinner? Whatever floats your boat. I'm not even hungry. Create a space for yourself. Light candles, burn incense, run a bath. Whatever floats your boat.
Qualquer coisa que te deixe feliz.
You can add raisins, nuts, chocolate chips, whatever floats your boat. I never figured you for a big heavy metal lover, but whatever floats your boat. I don't know why you would want this on video, but whatever floats your boat.
Up for grabs.
There are hundreds of prizes up for grabs.
Há centenas de prêmios disponíveis. Up for grabs.
There are hundreds of prizes up for grabs. The job was still up for grabs. The famous hotel is up for grabs for $100 million. A total of $250 million is up for grabs this year.
Está disponível.
This last piece of cake is up for grabs. Who wants it? The election is up for grabs. Everything is still very chancy.
A eleição ainda não é de ninguém.
The election is up for grabs. Everything is still very chancy. I don't know who will get the promotion. It's up for grabs.
Ainda não é de ninguém.
35 Senate seats are up for grabs in tomorrow's election. After the CEO's scandalous behavior was exposed, the whole company was up for grabs.
Caos total.
This is a madhouse. The whole place is up for grabs. When the market crashed, the whole office was up for grabs.
Make it up to someone.
I'm so sorry. I will do what I can to make it up to you.
Eu farei o que puder para te compensar.
I'll figure out some way to make it up to you. I know you're disappointed about missing the movie, but I'll make it up to you.
Mas eu irei te compensar.
I'm sorry we can't take you with us, but I promise I'll make it up to you somehow. He'd neglected his children and wanted to make it up to them by spending more time with them.
Compensá-los?
I'm so sorry for missing your recital. I promise that I'll make it up to you somehow. I don't know how I'll ever make it up to you for all the kindness and support you gave me after my father passed away. I will make it up to them, don't worry.
Eu os compensarei, não se preocupe.
He was looking for a way to make it up to her for what he had done. You'll just have to find some way to make it up to me. I'm sorry that I stood you up. I'll make it up to you. I damaged my teacher's book, and I'd like to make it up to her by either buying her a new book or having her copy repaired.
All walks of life.
People from all walks of life came to the carnival.
De todos os lados.
Thousands of worshippers from every walk of life joined together in prayer. Children of every walk of life attend this school. Members of the gym include lawyers, teachers, plumbers, and hairdressers, people from all walks of life. One of the greatest pleasures of this job is meeting people from all walks of life.
De todos os cantos, de todos os tipos,
People from all walks of life went to the party.
de todas as camadas sociais.
His cosmetic surgery patients come from all walks of life. But when we come from different walks of life and life experiences, caring for one another isn't always natural. As a social worker, I interact with all walks of life every day. We saw people at the airport from all walks of life. The people who came to the street fair represented all walks of life. People from all walks of life use the public library.
Like a charm.
Flattery usually works like a charm on him.
Geralmente, bajulação funciona às mil maravilhas com ele.
Flattery usually works like a charm on him.
Às mil maravilhas, like a charm.
Works like a charm in a couple of minutes. It works like a charm. Our new accounting system works like a charm. He said the alliance worked like a charm. The new sales program has worked like a charm.
Às mil maravilhas.
The cleaning fluid worked like a charm on the carpet stain. This new software works like a charm. I barely had to do anything, and the image is perfect. The medicine worked like a charm, and my life has greatly improved. I don't know what she said to him, but it worked like a charm. He's much more cooperative now.
If you say so. Se você diz.
If you say so, I won't insist. I'm fine, don't worry about me. Mark my words, I'll marry him someday.
If you say so.
James presented his elaborate reason for being 2 hours late. Nancy listened with a blank face and simply said, "If you say so." I saw Elvis at a store this afternoon. Wasn't it a man who looked like him? No, I really did see Elvis. If you say so. Well, if you say so, Shelley, I'll make sure he sees a therapist. I can't believe you forgot to pick her up at the airport. That was your father's fault. If you say so. Well, if you say so, that's good enough for me. I don't smell anything, but if you say so, I'll check the oven. Simon replied, "Master, we worked hard all night and caught nothing. But if you say so, I will lower the nets."
No on one stools.
Having 2 kids under age 5 sure keeps me on my toes.
Me mantém alerta.
This attorney is known for using really deceptive and underhanded tactics, so be on your toes. Orchestra players must be on their toes all the time so as not to miss an entrance. I work with people who are half my age, so that keeps me on my toes. They do random checks to keep workers on their toes. With a test every Friday, she keeps her students on their toes.
Empenhados.
Inflation keeps investors on their toes. Together, these threats are supposed to discipline managers and keep them on their toes. He keeps them on their toes. Keep him on his toes until he's ready to take command of the group.
But then, again.
I want to buy a new cell phone, but then again, I don't want to spend all my money.
Mas, por outro lado,
I bought a very basic cell phone, but then again, I couldn't afford to spend all of my money. I like to travel, but then again, I'm very fond of my home. It would be fun to see them, but then again, I don't really have the time. John might be ready to help us, but then again, he might not. You really feel sorry for him, but then again, it's hard to like him. Elaine's father might lend them the money, but then again, he might not. I don't think she liked my present, but then again, it could just be my imagination. I think it'll arrive tomorrow, but then again, it may not. We think you'll like this restaurant, but then again, not everyone does. The play was a bit dull, but then again, she's a great actress. This deal could really help the business get out of debt, but then again, you'd just be indebted to the government instead. Therefore, maybe this is not the best solution. I'd love to upgrade our car, but then again, there are lots of other things around the house that we need to replace more urgently. William didn't succeed the first time, but then again, very few people do. Dinah missed the last rehearsal, but then again, she always was unreliable, wasn't she? He doesn't have a strong French accent, but then again, he's lived here for 20 years. I need a vacation, but then again, so do my coworkers.
On the verge of.
He was on the verge of saying something, but stopped and shook his head.
Ele estava a ponto de dizer.
The country was on the verge of becoming prosperous and successful.
Prestes.
The show was on the verge of being canceled due to low ratings. The band were on the verge of splitting up. She knew he was on the verge of losing his job.
On the verge.
I was on the verge of losing my patience. Jess seemed on the verge of tears. The event left her on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Mountain gorillas are on the verge of extinction. I hope he didn't notice I was on the verge of a breakdown.
Boo-hoo.
Boo-hoo, she wailed. I'm lost.
Bah, ela lamentou.
Boo-hoo, cried Lisa after she misplaced her saxophone. Then all the girls cried boo-hoo. The tough crowd reacted with boos instead of boo-hoos. Before she finished her question, one twin and then the other began to cry. Boo-hoo, Ernie mocked. I'm not staying here with crybabies. Well, boo-hoo, I am so sorry your feelings are hurt, princess. So you broke it. Boo-hoo. Get a grip and clean up the mess.
Peninha.
The boss didn't like your project? Boo-hoo. Come up with another one.
Que peninha.
He asked why I didn't want to go out with them, and I said that it was because I was tired. Boo-hoo, he replied. I heard him boo-hooing about his broken toy.
Choramingando.
Sorry, honey, but that's for me to know, and for you to stay up nights and nights, boo-hooing because you'll never find out. Even my dad confessed to having cried, boo-hooed, snuffled, and sighed over the death of the dog in that movie. Enough boo-hooing. You're not the only one who has problems. No one feels good after being dumped. The loudest boo-hooing seems to be coming from young people. Woman, cease this detestable boo-hooing instantly, or seek the shelter of some other place of worship.
Wear thin.
You can see here how the leather has been worn thin by years of use.
Desgastado. Worn thin.
His clothes were worn thin and shabby.
Gasta. Worn thin.
I was wearing jeans worn thin by years of use.
Worn thin.
My patience is beginning to wear very thin.
Se esgotar de verdade.
I've warned you several times about being late, and my patience is wearing thin. Please try to behave. My patience is beginning to wear thin.
Se esgotando.
He was sympathetic at first, but his patience soon wore thin.
Se esgotando.
Patience was wearing thin, and time was running out. His excuses are wearing thin.
Já não estão dando, né?
Some of Wilson's eccentricities are beginning to wear thin.
Cansando.
Tony, the joke is beginning to wear thin now. It's time to stop. Don't you think that joke's wearing a bit thin? Her standard excuse for being late was beginning to wear thin.
Cansando.
The film begins well, but the joke wears thin after about 10 minutes.
The then. O então.
The then Secretary of State agreed with the decision.
The then.
The bill was enacted by the then Labor government.
Pelo então.
A special court on Monday framed charges against the then chairman and managing director of the company. My grandfather rented 120 Church Street from the then owners, W. Collins and Sons. Previously, he had been part of the particular secretariat of the then Cardinal Secretary of State, Angelo Sedano. He was known by many for his role in the then record-breaking robbery of the mail train from Glasgow to London in August 1963. It was the first orbiting artificial satellite launched by the then Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR. The decision was based on the then dominant concept of modernization.
No então.
He accepted a peerage from the then Prime Minister, Edward Heath.
Do então.
They did tests on the then recently developed material known today as PVC. Under the then prevailing circumstances, financial institutions in Greece had difficulties in accessing funding. I wanted to live in the city, but my then husband preferred the country.
Meu então.
My then wife, Laura, didn't like the idea, and as it turned out, I should have listened to her.
Minha então esposa Laura.
My then wife, Laura,
Give and take.
in every friendship, there has to be some give and take.
Reciprocidade.
They are in a happy relationship where there's a lot of give and take. Any successful negotiation involves some give and take. He had no sense of give and take, no idea of the concessions one made for the sake of social comfort. We were simply told what to do. There wasn't any give and take. The candidates engaged in a lively give and take, witnessed by a huge television audience. The next 15 minutes are spent on a give and take that only another teenager could understand. The purpose of this meeting is to have a give and take between employees and the management.
Troca ideias. Troca de ideias.
The university has set up an online forum so students are able to have a give and take with the administration. You have to learn to give and take in any relationship. It is supposed to be a process of give and take, of compromise and careful listening. Some adjustments came easily, without conscious effort. Others required both sides to give and take.
Under the radar.
He tried to stay under the radar as he went about his business.
Na surdina.
I plan to stay under the radar until this controversy blows over.
Debaixo do radar.
Experts say a lot of corporate crimes stay under the radar.
Na surdina.
Institutional change has not happened, but it's done quietly under the radar at lots of places. They managed to stay under the radar for years after stealing all that money from their friends. Jackson didn't want his boss to find out he was searching for another job, so he did everything under the radar. After the successful career of a decade, why is the band staying under the radar now? For the first 8 years of its existence, the band stayed under the radar.
Permaneceu na surdina.
Little local bars like this fly under the tourists' radar.
Passam despercebidos.
How can such a serious error be slipped under the radar of the inspectors? Have you heard this band's latest album? I didn't even know it was out. It must have flown under my radar. Every year, the government promises to do something about the homelessness problem, yet every year it seems to slip under the radar again. With so many different amendments to the bill being made, some appropriations slipped under the radar.
Lose the plot.
I can't believe Stewart did that. He must be losing the plot.
Ficando maluco.
I am so ashamed of myself. I have no one to talk to. I think I am just losing the plot.
Ficando maluco, losing the plot.
I think the referee lost the plot a little bit. The world around him was an illusion. He had lost the plot. She was so nervous, she thought she was going to lose the plot. Tony's put everything in the wrong place. He's losing the plot. Roger seems to have lost the plot ever since his wife died. I'm sorry, I'm losing the plot. Can you explain again? Sometimes I really think my parents have lost the plot. I'm sorry, I'm losing the plot. Can you explain again? He spoke too fast, and I kind of lost the plot. I lost the plot here. Can you repeat that last bit?
Fiquei perdido.
I lost the plot here.
Pull one's weight.
If you don't pull your weight, our presentation will never be finished on time.
Se você não fizer sua parte,
If you don't pull your weight, We have a small organization, so we all must pull our own weight. We cannot afford to carry members who are not pulling their weight. I felt that John wasn't pulling his weight around the house and asked him to do a bit more of the cleaning. It's about everyone being given a chance to pull their weight and get a fair reward for what they do. If everyone pulls their weight, we're going to win this prize with no trouble at all. She's annoyed because she feels that certain people are not pulling their weight. The others had complained that Sarah wasn't pulling her weight.
fazendo a parte dela.
If he doesn't start pulling his weight, he'll lose his job. Bob has never pulled his weight, and we all have to work harder to make up for his laziness.
Fazer a hit home.
Do you think the message really hit home with him?
Foi compreendida? Hit home?
In many cases, the reality of war doesn't hit home until people are actually called upon to fight.
Não se faz sentir.
Did the reality of war finally hit home?
Se fez sentida.
Israeli officials say that message struck home. The full horror of the war only hit home when we started seeing the television pictures of it in our living rooms. The film has an underlying theme of grief and loss that will hit home with a lot of viewers. It wasn't until he was threatened with losing his job that the comments about John's work ethic really hit home.
Foram compreendidos.
Mary's criticism of my clothes hit home, so I changed.
Tocou fundo.
Mary's criticism of my clothes hit home, so I changed. The severity of the situation struck home last week when hundreds of troops entered the town. The teacher's comment struck home, and the student vowed to work harder.
More than meets the eye.
There is more to this proposal than meets the eye.
Tem mais coisa nessa proposta do que se vê à primeira vista.
There is more to this proposal than meets the eye. This whole business is very puzzling. There is a lot more to it than meets the eye. She is convinced there is more to your friendship than meets the eye.
Mais do que aparenta ser.
There's more to this apparently ordinary table than meets the eye. Don't discount Fred as a candidate for this job. There's more to him than meets the eye. This story goes deeper. There's definitely more than meets the eye with this one. There is more to that problem than meets the eye. What makes you think that there is more than meets the eye? This agreement involves more than meets the eye. I didn't know he wrote poetry. Yes, and he also does painting. There's more to him than meets the eye.
Mais do que os olhos possam ver.
It looks like a simple case of burglary, but there may be more to it than meets the eye.
Mais do que os olhos possam ver.
People think of Bradford as a dull industrial city, but there is more to it than meets the eye.
Eavesdrop.
Please don't eavesdrop on me.
Escute as escondidas.
He was eavesdropping on our conversation.
Eavesdrop.
The child eavesdropped on her parents' discussion. The government illegally eavesdropped on his phone conversations. The housemaid eavesdropped from behind the kitchen door. Because it's likely that people will eavesdrop on our discussion, I think we should postpone it until a later time. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. If you don't stop eavesdropping on us, I'm going to tell Mom. Maria was eavesdropping on the telephone call. My office is now above a hairdresser's, and I love eavesdropping on conversations. I caught him eavesdropping on our conversation. She wanted to ask what they were talking about, but did not want him to think she had eavesdropped. In most cases, it is difficult to detect that someone is eavesdropping.
Escutando as escondidas. High time.
It is high time the government displayed a more humanitarian approach towards victims of the recession.
Tá na hora.
Thank you for a lovely meal, but it's high time for us to start heading home. It is high time that someone gives him the punishment he deserves. It is high time to consider the problem on a global scale. It's high time you got that bad knee looked at by a doctor. It's high time you got a job, don't you think? It's high time we made some changes around here. It's high time you cleaned your room. It's high time we were leaving. It's high time you started thinking about saving for your old age.
Get hold of. Alcançar.
I wasn't able to get hold of my brother over the weekend. I hope he's okay. I'm trying to get a hold of some of these people for our meeting tomorrow.
Contatar.
Usually I can get hold of him at any time.
Não consigo falar. Eu consigo falar.
I tried again to get hold of my cousin, Joan.
Fazer contato.
How can I get a hold of Chris?
Como posso entrar em contato com Chris?
I spent all morning on the phone trying to get hold of the manager.
Get hold.
I tried to get hold of you, but the line was busy.
Tentar ligar.
Can you get hold of Mike and tell him the meeting's postponed? I've been trying to get a hold of my lawyer for days. Where can I get hold of some stamps?
Onde eu posso conseguir alguns selos?
I've managed to get hold of some rather good wine. Where can I get hold of today's newspaper? How on earth do you think I'm going to get a hold of a police badge?
Obter distintivo policial.
For others, even getting a hold of the essentials is out of reach. Do you know where I can get hold of a telephone directory for Paris? Where can I get hold of a copy? The wine is superb, but hard to get hold of. The police officer got a hold of the suspect before he could run away.
Agarrou, get hold.
My sister got a hold of me at our mother's funeral to keep herself from breaking down in tears. Get a hold of the rope.
Agarre a corda.
Here, get hold of this for a minute. Can you get hold of one of the hoses while I pull the other? Get hold of the bag while I open the door, will you? Well, once corporations get a hold of a politician, it's easy to predict where that senator's or congressperson's interests will lie. Addiction seems to have completely gotten a hold of John. Get hold of yourself and stop arguing over minor details. We're nearly finished negotiating this thing.
Controle-se.
I was afraid Stu wasn't going to be able to get hold of himself after that outburst.
Se controlar.
You must get hold of yourself. Her latest novel got a hold of me and didn't let go until I'd read it cover to cover.
Me capturou.
When I saw this picture book, the title got hold of my attention and I started reading it. The reality of this war had got hold of my imagination, as indeed for a time it got hold of the English imagination altogether. This is a very difficult concept to get hold of.
De captar.
One way to get hold of this concept is the classroom itself. If you get hold of this principle, it will change your life.
Guess what? Adivinha só.
Guess what? I won a trip to the Caribbean. Guess what? I finally got that job I interviewed for. Guess what? Your mother is coming to visit this weekend after all. Guess what? What? Do you have news? Guess what? Angela's getting married next month. Guess what? What? I'm going to Europe this summer. Guess what? What? Mary is going to have a baby. Oh, that's great. Guess what? I just got my first part in a movie. I've only had 2 job interviews, and guess what? No job offers. Guess what? We won the game 4-0. Guess what? Jessica and Tim got married. Can you believe it?
Not know the first thing about.
I don't know the first thing about physics.
Eu não entendo nada de física.
He doesn't know the first thing about literature. I'm afraid I don't know the first thing about car engines. I don't know the first thing about flying an airplane. I don't know the first thing about Chinese history. You don't know the first thing about farming. I don't know the first thing about computers, so you'll have to explain this to me really slowly. What's an attachment again? She doesn't know the first thing about John. She doesn't know the first thing about John. He doesn't know the first thing about the problems we've been having. Jeff wouldn't know the first thing about how to take care of a baby. Thank goodness you're there to help. Why do you presume to know what I would or wouldn't do? You don't know the first thing about me.
Back and forth. De lado para o outro.
She swayed gently back and forth to the music.
Back and forth.
He was pacing back and forth, obviously very nervous. Two boys were in the street, tossing a baseball back and forth. The chair rocked back and forth.
Pode deixar aí, pai. Pode deixar aí.
Slowly move your fingers back and forth.
Tá.
It's probably just the wind, batting an old window back and forth. We ran back and forth, carrying buckets of water. He was convicted of helping the operative travel back and forth from the U.S. to Mexico. The children were shuttled back and forth between school and home. We travel back and forth all the time between Canada and England. The oceans have always both absorbed and spit out carbon dioxide, shuttling the carbon back and forth from atmosphere to water. To pursue her dream, Sarah moved to New York in April and plans to stay there for a year, while her husband commutes back and forth from Pennsylvania. At what point do we start calling this back and forth a feud? They're having a real back and forth up there. Can you hear them yelling? After some back and forth, Morgan asked, "Can you stop being such a jerk?" "Don't worry, it's just classic brother back and forth."
Train wreck.
My cousin died in a terrible train wreck. That train wreck killed over 100 people.
Acidente de trem.
Mr. President, the train accident in Boisingen on Monday, 15 February 2010, was a shocking tragedy. My life is a train wreck.
Desastre.
The movie was a train wreck. After last year's train wreck of a season, we have to do better. 6 months later, with Washington facing a political train wreck in Iraq, whom did it call? The United Nations. His football career has been a train wreck. This project has become an absolute train wreck. We've wasted so much time and money already. Despite a stellar cast, the film turned out to be a real train wreck. I don't know about my relationship with Kevin. He's a bit of a train wreck between you and me. The album is inspired by his train wreck life. She has spared us no detail of her train wreck existence. It is a train wreck political strategy, and political consequences will be inevitable.
On the spur of the moment. No impulso do momento.
We just jumped in a car on the spur of the moment and drove to the seaside. On the spur of the moment, we decided to go to the beach.
De última hora.
I like to do things on the spur of the moment.
Por impulso.
You have to think of an example on the spur of the moment. We have not jumped to conclusions on the spur of the moment. That is not a bad reply on the spur of the moment. You've got to stop making decisions about your business on the spur of the moment like this. We decided to go on the spur of the moment.
De última hora.
He decided to join a tour to England on the spur of the moment. She asked me on the spur of the moment to go along with her. When they telephoned me with the offer of a job abroad, I decided on the spur of the moment to accept. I decided on the spur of the moment to invite him. They admitted they had taken a vehicle on the spur of the moment. I had to leave town on the spur of the moment. It wasn't a spur of the moment decision. We discussed it in detail beforehand. We hadn't planned to go away. It was one of those spur of the moment decisions. Keep in mind that this wasn't a spur of the moment conclusion. It was determined after 30 years of research.
Godspeed.
She told me to wish you Godspeed.
Ela me disse para lhe desejar boa sorte em sua jornada.
I know you will join me in wishing them Godspeed. I'm wishing you Godspeed, Hattersley, cried Arthur, and aiding you with my prayers. 8 years before, he had seen his friend off at the North Wall and wished him Godspeed.
Boa sorte na jornada. Godspeed.
I will not stand in your way. If your mother permits you, then Godspeed. Tell her I will not interfere. You will go with my blessings. May this be your legacy to the next generation. Godspeed. Farewell and Godspeed, the general said, ending his speech. A hearty Godspeed was extended to all the departing troops. Before I left, I wished them all Godspeed on the risky journey they were making in their cockle shell. We wish this funny, vulnerable, and lonely person Godspeed. Earlier in the day, several hundred people packed the auditorium to wish them Godspeed and a safe passage home.
Be something else.
This game is really something else.
Demais something else.
Her new film is something else. Having grown up in a typical American city, living in a small Japanese village for a year has been something else. I thought I'd seen some interesting parts of the world, but Dubai really is something else.
É excepcional, Dubai.
There are many good footballers in this country, but she really is something else. In a year of lackluster releases, her new documentary is really something else.
Extraordinário.
You really are something else. I've seen some fine players, but she's something else. This movie really is something else. My mother's cooking is something else. Isn't that something? This boy really is something.
Excepcional.
That restaurant around the corner really is something.
É demais. Keep it under wraps.
Keep this under wraps for now, but Greg is definitely the one getting the promotion.
Mantém segredo por enquanto.
We kept the plan under wraps until after the election. She decided to keep her plans under wraps for a while. The automobile company kept the new model under wraps until most of the old models had been sold. They tried to keep the report under wraps. The project has been kept under wraps for years, but in the interests of security, we are keeping the information under wraps. Now his biggest concern is keeping his excitement under wraps. It's been suggested the report was kept under wraps to avoid controversy. The news was kept under wraps for the weekend.
Take a back seat.
Linda was content to take a back seat and let Nancy run the meeting.
Ficar nos bastidores. Take a back seat.
I'll be happy to take a back seat when Robin takes over. I took a back seat during the presentation because I knew you could handle it. I was happy to take a back seat and give someone else the opportunity to manage the project. After 40 years in the business, it's time for me to take a back seat and let someone younger take over. Other issues must take a back seat to this crisis.
Ficar em segundo plano.
Unfortunately, I had the flu last week, so everything else had to take a back seat. It is true that in the Apollo program, science took a back seat to technology and engineering. As the novel progresses, the war takes a back seat to the growing romance between Harvey and Martha. Foreign policy will take a back seat to domestic problems for a while.
Ficar em segundo plano.
Quality will have to take a back seat to price when we buy the new furniture.
On the face of it. À primeira vista.
On the face of it, it seems like a bargain, but I bet there are hidden costs. The story seems simple on the face of it, but it's really pretty complicated. On the face of it, that seems to make sense, but the figures don't add up. We do not believe on the face of it that there has been illegal activity by the banks. This seems a contradiction on the face of it. On the face of it, he appeared to be an ideal candidate for the position. It is, on the face of it, a difficult point to grasp. It looks, on the face of it, like a minor change in the regulations. On the face of it, his suggestion makes sense. On the face of it, this seems like a perfectly good idea. We must wait and see if it turns out well. They were not, on the face of it, a likely match. On the face of it, her proposal seems ridiculous. Maybe it will sound better when we learn more about it.
As we speak.
They are looking for a solution to this problem as we speak.
Neste exato momento.
Oh, we won't be late after all. Patrick is pulling into the driveway as we speak.
Neste exato momento.
Today, as we speak, millions of children around the world are going hungry.
Enquanto nós nos falamos.
The booklets being printed as we speak will be on sale this afternoon. Forensics are depicting the content as we speak. I'm sorry, sir, consoled the agent at the gate. The plane is taking off as we speak. The situation is being dealt with, even as we speak. Even as we speak, a ceasefire agreement is being signed in Geneva. Waiter, where is my steak? It's taking a long time. It is being grilled even as we speak, sir, just as you requested. They are finishing the job even as we speak.
Be up to someone.
The decision is up to you.
Depende de você.
If it were up to me, I'd do it. You can pay weekly or monthly. It's up to you. It's up to you. What would you rather do this weekend? Do you want to stay or go? It's up to you. Shall we have an Indian or a Chinese meal? It's up to you. The decision's not up to me. It's up to all of us to try to solve the problems in our neighborhoods. It's up to the travel companies to warn customers of any possible dangers. It's not up to you to discipline my children. We live in this community, so it's up to us to improve it. It's up to us to help people in need. It's up to the manager to make the final decision.
Sitting duck.
The tourists were sitting ducks for local thieves.
Alvos fáceis para ladrões.
The tourists were sitting ducks for local thieves. With their bullets all gone, the soldiers were sitting ducks for the enemy.
Alvos fáceis, sitting ducks.
Those stupid comments just made him a sitting duck for comedians. When my car broke down in a bad neighborhood, I felt like a sitting duck just waiting to get robbed. We can't go into that area unarmed. We'd be sitting ducks. The senator was a sitting duck because of his unpopular position on school reform. A pilot performing this maneuver would be a sitting duck for a second enemy aircraft.
Alvo fácil.
A car without side impact airbags is a sitting duck if it's hit broadside by an SUV. It's always easy to criticize teachers. They're just sitting ducks.
São alvos fáceis.
Experts worry that many local governments are sitting ducks. Municipalities often lack the funding to keep their security systems up to date.
To a fault.
Jefferson was generous to a fault.
Até não poder mais. To a fault.
Others will tell you that she is modest to a fault, funny, clever, and warm. I am trusting to a fault. He's a very kind-hearted man and generous to a fault. Jim is polite to a fault. It can actually be a little bit irritating sometimes. The police sergeant is honest to a fault, following every regulation and guideline without question. He's honest to a fault, brave, dedicated, and fiercely proud of the New York Police Department. My sister is kind to a fault. I love truth and am sincere to a fault. He's generous to a fault, and everyone likes him.
Off the cuff. De improviso.
I hadn't prepared a speech, so I just said a few words off the cuff.
Off the cuff. De improviso.
I could not answer it off the cuff. I didn't have time to organize my thoughts, so I just spoke off the cuff. The senator has become known for making off-the-cuff remarks that create controversy. Her remarks were off the cuff, but very sensible. I'm not very good at making off-the-cuff speeches. This wasn't just an off-the-cuff decision.
Improvisado, off the cuff.
I don't know how you can stand up and give an after-dinner speech off the cuff like that. She's very good at speaking on these issues off the cuff. He was just speaking off the cuff when he made those suggestions.
The very thing.
Kiwi fruit are just the thing for a healthy snack.
A melhor coisa.
I know the very thing to cheer you up.
Coisa ideal.
If you're looking for an unusual holiday, this could be the very thing. I'm telling you, when you're hungover, a big basket of French fries is the very thing. I have the very thing to wear with a dress that color.
Melhor coisa.
The vacuum cleaner is the very thing for cleaning the stairs. I have the very thing to remove that stain. A holiday is probably just the thing for you. A week's rest would be just the thing for her. I have just the thing for your hair. Chicken soup is just the thing for a cold.
Way better.
Apples are way better than bananas. Their band is way better now that they practice every day. You are way better at math than Sam. It is way better to save some of your money than to spend it all at once. It's way better to have a small, cozy room than a big, cold one. She is way better at tennis than I am. Fresh vegetables are way better for you than canned ones. She's getting way better at pronouncing English words. This car is way better than our old one. French croissants are way better than the English ones. They did way better in the second half of the game.